Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Pep Talks Uncut. This is the third in our series of a number of videos that we'll be taping and recording with guests from all across Pennsylvania, part of the LGBTQ plus community, and our allies. Today, we happen to have one very strong, adamant ally from Allentown. We have Representative Mike Schlossberg. Mike, thank you for being on the show today.
Glad to be with you, David. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. So during our warm-up for today's show, we talked a little bit about Father's Day. Mm-hmm. Tell us about your family.
So I am happily married, have been for 11 years. I have a 10-year-old boy named Oren, an 8-year-old girl named Ayla. And to anybody out there who's listening, bonus points if you can figure out where their names come from.
Well, congratulations. That sounds like a lovely family.
It is.
And I see you have the city of Allentown in the background.
I do. I'm on the street corner right now. It's very quiet.
Really?
No, I'm not. No, this is the Zoom background.
I kind of figured maybe Allentown is just a hustle and bustle kind of city like that.
It is. And it's gotten more so in the past decade. It's been really thrilling to watch the city's progress.
That's fantastic. So you've come a long way from the Billy Joel song Allentown from back in the 70s and 80s.
Yes, we have. And we all hate that song because it's not, the irony about that song, honestly, is it's not even about Allentown. It's either about Bethlehem or it's about Levittown. But no, the city has truly undergone a remarkable transformation.
Well, that's good.
It is. It's really changed from a primarily manufacturing-based city where a lot of folks work for Bethlehem Steel or any of the number of surrounding factories to a city that's big on healthcare and education and government and emerging technologies. It's been so much fun to watch the way that the city has changed and watch it grow. Really been a joy and one of the great honors of my life.
Well, so I got to check in briefly on one of the other great times in your life a couple of days ago. You were a guest at the JCC pool in Allentown for the grand opening. How did that go?
That was a lot of fun. One of the most fun parts of my job is you get to do a lot of random grand openings. And you get to go to a lot of random events and see some really fun things. On one hand, it was a relatively ordinary event. It was a pool grand opening for a new summer camp. But on the other hand, JCC in Allentown is kind of it's a community mainstay. It's been here. Yeah, I think in some form or fashion, I think it's been 100 years or so. And it's been in the city that whole time. A few years ago, they were seriously considering moving out of the city. They had an older facility and they weren't sure that's where their membership was. And that wasn't something I wanted, or I think any real Allentown resident wanted. And in the end, they've changed their mind. They decided to stay and invest better in the facility. So they opened a new pool. So it was a nice little step in the right direction. It's only a few blocks from my house. I use that place as a gym on a regular basis. I was there with my son. He got to be one of the first people to jump into the pool and he was very excited. And frankly, any event I can bring my kids to is a bonus.
Well, absolutely. And considering it's Father's Day, do you have plans to take them to the pool?
I think at some point, honestly, an ideal Father's Day for me is sitting on my butt playing video games with them. And if someone wants to throw cake or ice cream in my direction, I'll be a pretty happy camper. I have very simple taste, thank God.
We'll have the organization ship you a cake. How about that?
I appreciate that. Any cake will do. I'm not very picky.
Well, I was recently in Harrisburg a couple of days ago. There wasn't any cake or ice cream.
No, just a lot of tears.
Yes, we had Governor Wolf alongside Representative Brian Sims and Representative Benham and Representative Kenyatta, and a number of senators and Ciora Thomas from Pittsburgh were all on hand. And they talked at length about the Pennsylvania Fairness Act, which is a non-discrimination act that would prohibit discrimination based on sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. How do you come down on this particular bill?
I mean, I've been a co-sponsor it every year. I've been in the legislature. That's the biggest no-brainer in the world, and it blows my mind that we can't get it through. It's one of those rare areas where I think the progressive community and the business community completely align. It'd be good for Pennsylvania workers. It'd be good for Pennsylvania businesses. It'd be good for Pennsylvania's economy, and most importantly, it'd be good for every individual whose fundamental constitutional rights would be protected. it's a very depressing statement about the state of the Commonwealth, and we can't get this one done, that the majority won't move it. It's really unfortunate, to put it politely.
So that was something that Brian Sims and Malcolm Kenyatta both pointed out, was that the GOP leadership in both the House and the Senate have done nothing towards taking up the bill and getting it to the floor for a vote. I know for a number of years, State Representative Darrell Metcalf held it up in the State Government Committee, but he's no longer there on that committee. He's been moved, and now there's a new chair. Is it possible that we could at least get the bill out of committee?
You know, at the end of the day, that's up to the chairman, and it's up to his membership and their membership. We have a series of rules and parliamentary procedures that we can use in Harrisburg, but at the end of the day, the only rule that matters is the rule of 102. And unless the Republican majority, because they got more than 102, decides they want to move it, we're stuck. I will say, I think if this were to come up for a straight up or down vote right now, no parliamentary tricks, none of that nonsense, it would pass. But it would pass with a minority of Republicans voting for it. And that means they won't move it. They simply don't have the support within their own caucus to move the thing. And if any of their leadership actually were to, get a little bit courageous with this one and try to push it, the pushback, I think, would be enormous. I think they have I think the vast majority of Republicans I think a majority of Republicans on a personal level don't really care. I think they're either like, this is ridiculous, I can't believe we're still fighting about this, who honestly cares at this point? Or they agree with the position and the bill, but are fearful of what the political pushback would be from their Republican counterparts, from their, Republican constituents. I think there's a solid chunk of Republicans that genuinely and fervently oppose this bill for religious or moral reasons. But for the vast majority of them, I don't think this issue really emotionally resonates the way that it used to for them. I mean, the general public has moved so much on LGBT issues, and I think there's just a really vocal minority that's bottling this one up and making sure it's not going to get anywhere.
So in what way do you think big business could help?
I think big business could and should put as much pressure as humanly possible on these guys. I think they should threaten to withhold contributions unless they move on this issue, but that's just me. And at the end of the day, unfortunately, as much as they may favor this one, they align more with Republicans on other issues. So it's not going to be a wedge issue. I think all they care about, like most businesses fundamentally, is money. And as long as they think they could make more money with Republican leadership than Democratic leadership, this issue is not going to matter. And it's a depressing statement, but it's an accurate one.
Well, and therein is something that's frustrated me and a lot of members of our community. And that is, every time June rolls around, companies like to slap rainbow stickers on their products and shove them out to the LGBTQ community and anyone else who's interested in buying their product. And then as soon as July 1st hits, all the rainbows vanish, and any support they were giving during June is gone. And of course, the proceeds from the sales of all of their products doesn't actually get to the LGBTQ community. It's just profit for their shareholders.
I actually was tweeting about this the other day. It's fascinating, in a sense, how far the LGBTQ movement has come, because on one hand, they are slapping their pride logos and making their kind of bland statements about how they support pride. And yes, that's great. I mean, supporting pride has become good marketing. That says something about where we've moved as a society, and it says a very positive thing. But they're still spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in political action, donations, funding anti-LGBT politicians. And that's where the disconnect lies. Absolutely. And again, really, I was tweeting about this, couldn't have been more than a week ago.
Okay, so that brings me to my next question, and it's one that just happened today. We've been waiting for a decision in the Fulton v. City of Philadelphia case from the U.S. Supreme Court. The Third Circuit Court of Appeals had ruled in favor of the City of Philadelphia, and they were waiting for the ruling today from the U.S. Supreme Court. And they handed down a unanimous decision against the City of Philadelphia, meaning Catholic Social Services is free to continue with their practices of denying adoption and foster care for children in their care to same-sex couples or LGBTQ plus individuals. Is there anything the state can do to fight that?
I might be mistaken, but I don't know what we could do short of a constitutional amendment. I'm really not sure because it was a U.S. court decision. The state, I don't believe the state can't override a decision. However, it also depends on the nature of the scope. Of course, you're right. The decision just came out today. I haven't looked at it yet. It's been one of those days. But the one thing that I saw is it was a pretty narrow decision in scope, and that makes me wonder if there isn't some sort of technicality or way around their decision that would legalize it. However, that would have to come from the city, which I'm sure would make the appropriate change, or the state, which there's no way we'd be able to muster the political willpower to do it.
Well, that is a real shame because that leads to the question of, so the US Supreme Court ruled this way regarding adoption and foster care, which is at the heart of many families in Pennsylvania.
Absolutely.
So if they can turn away LGBTQ people at the adoption agency, can they turn them away at the homeless shelter or at the soup kitchen or the bread line?
Or to broaden it even further, could they potentially start turning away people? Could other agencies start turning away people based on additional criteria like race or gender or religion?
Exactly. So what if a Christian church wanted to turn away, say, someone of the Jewish or Muslim faith? Would they be able
Absolutely.
to do so?
Yeah, and would that then engender more controversy? Again, and I'm actually looking at something on my computer right now. The ACLU of Pennsylvania did say, quote, it's a very narrow ruling. I'm not an attorney. I haven't looked at it yet. So I don't know what it means. If even the ACLU is saying it's a narrow ruling, hopefully that means it doesn't create a broad-based precedent that would allow for agencies to discriminate based on characteristics like gender identity or sexual orientation. But again, without having looked at it closer, I don't have an answer yet.
Well, so to that end, CNN is reporting that Justice Samuel Alito wrote a separate opinion, which he's prone to do. And in this opinion, he laments the fact that Chief Justice Roberts didn't take the decision far enough. He wanted to see a more expanded view of the free exercise clause of the First Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a sad commentary on the state of affairs at our Supreme Court.
I couldn't possibly agree with you more. Chief Justice Breyer, great man. Please ride into the sunset, let Biden appoint a 25-year-old.
And any plans on becoming a Supreme Court justice?
No.
Even if President Biden said, hey, Mike, we want you on the Supreme Court.
I feel like I don't meet the necessary legal criteria, like having a law degree.
That's what stymies you.
Slight problem there. Yeah, no, this gig's fine. Thank you. I'm gonna hold on to this as long as the voters will have me.
That is fantastic. Now, I, for example, wanted to run for state representative when I was living in Erie County, but that would have pitted me against Ryan Bizzarro, one of your colleagues.
Who's as good as it gets.
And I'd rather not go against somebody who's a stalwart in the legislature who's already doing a fine job. He doesn't need me running a primary against him.
Right. And he's also, Ryan's also very good on LGBT issues. I'm pretty sure he's got a record that looks like mine, 100%.
Oh yeah, we're absolutely thrilled that he's in the legislature. So I didn't want to run against him.
That's good. That's good.
I don't live in Erie County anymore. I'm now in Meadville, deep in the heart of Crawford County.
Oh Lord. Oh no. Is it Darrell?
Oh
no, that's not Crawford.
He's down in Butler. No,
I'm sorry.
It's Brad Rowe.
Oh, that's it. All right.
Now we are a nonprofit. We're a nonprofit organization, and we can't speak ill of current candidates or people who are already in office. So Brad, if you're watching this, I doubt you are, but if you are, no offense intended, but he'd be the person I'd be running against. Now, I'm not running, but we have other up and coming politicians in the works that are attending places like Allegheny College or Edinburgh University. What advice would you give an up and coming politician for getting into office?
Two things. First, you have to understand that you have to start at the very, very bottom, like as far down as it gets. You start as an intern, you volunteer, you knock on doors. But second, and more importantly, don't run around like you're a politician. Run around like you want to care about your community, and then the rest of it flows from there. Find things in your community that you care about that aren't in government, be it nonprofits or volunteer work or some sort of passion project. Make a positive difference in your community first. Confirm that it's the place that you want to get to know, that you want to love, and go from there.
Yeah, and I think we see that in other politicians whom you wouldn't expect to be politicians. For example, Lieutenant Governor Fetterman.
Mhm.
The first time I met him in Erie at a fundraiser, I shook his hand and I think he nearly squeezed mine off.
That sounds about right.
So I looked at him and then looked at a picture of the Big Show from WWE and I thought, were they separated at birth?
It's very possible.
But no, John is a wonderful man. He is the recipient of Marriage Equality for Pennsylvania's Equality Award for doing all he did. For example, he was marrying same-sex couples in 2013 before it had become law yet. So if we were to give out an Equality Act award or Equality Award today as an organization, who would you recommend?
A really interesting question. So if we're talking about specifically within Pennsylvania, I'm hesitating because I don't want to come up. I'm trying to think of an answer that's a little less cliche. Like, okay, so we obviously have LGBTQ heroes within Pennsylvania. We've got people like Brian and Malcolm or Dr. Levine, but those are folks who don't need any more recognition. I don't know who the answer specifically is necessarily. Actually, you know what? Yeah, maybe I do off the top of my head. I think the answer, at least at this moment, based on what he tried to do a few weeks ago, is my colleague Mike Zabel. Mike tried to amend a bill in order to remove there was some sort of criminal code issue within the criminal code that made it easier to not be convicted for attacking a gay person. It was something along those lines. And Republicans shot him down. And he took to social media about it, and he spoke about it twice on the floor, and he was shot down. And he got loud about it. And he got flack for it, but he also, showed his passion for the issue. I think that as you talk about getting out equality awards, the goal should be to raise awareness of the issue among people who aren't in the LGBT population. I think that's a direction that's important to go and to kind of spread the love, so to speak.
Exactly. So I recall reading about Mike Zabel and his efforts. One of the things he was trying to do in that bill was to remove homosexuality from Pennsylvania's obscenity law.
That was it. Thank you. I was blanking on it.
Making dissemination of books and other materials to minors, that's currently a crime.
Yep.
Which is fascinating because out in Lycoming County and here in Crawford County, there are two different cases of library books being put on display that were LGBTQ themed. And the librarians have taken quite a bit of flack for it. In Lycoming County, two commissioners in an open meeting spoke about how perhaps the county library, the James V. Brown Library, should lose its county funding.
Sounds about right.
And here in Crawford County, David Valesky is a school board member, and he referred to the entire LGBTQ community as totally evil.
Sounds right.
And
cool.
So last night, there was a school board meeting at Sagertown High School up in the Penncrest School District. They had people fly in from Alaska.
Nice.
To be a part of the meeting, and the gym was at full capacity. Most of the people there were in support of the LGBTQ community.
That's good.
That is. So that raises the question, do you have similar issues out where you live?
No. Or scratch that. I will never say no. I'm lucky, my district is certainly progressive. The districts surrounding me are more progressive than I would say either of those two are. However, we certainly have issues like that. For example, right now, we have a group of parents suing the East Penn School District, a neighboring school district, because they taught about things like Black Lives Matter, and in their curriculum was books like White Fragility. As an aside, the literal definition of white fragility might be suing when forced to learn about white fragility. So yes, we do have those issues. I will say, thankfully, there are more anomalies than not. I think we have a relatively large gay population here. We have a very engaged gay political scene, and it's been good to work with, and it's been reaffirming for me that this is a place that shares my values that I want to represent.
Now, Allentown, as I recall, had a tragic loss. I believe it was on June 3rd. It might have been June 9th. I don't remember the date, but the Stonewall Inn,
yeah,
Allentown closed down.
Yep.
Apparently the building was being sold to somebody new, and that new person didn't want to continue the lease.
Mhm.
Do you see any new LGBTQ themed bars replacing it?
If I'm not crazy, I thought that somebody said they were going to try to reopen it at a different location. The demand is still there. I mean, if anything, frankly, the LGBTQ population community in the Valley has grown, and not only have they grown, but they've become more comfortable. So yeah, the demand is there in my mind. I thought they had said something about starting a new place. Could be mistaken.
Okay, now, at the state level, there are a number of other concerns that the Pennsylvania Equality Project has raised that are available on our website that Ms. Thomas mentioned at the governor's press conference the other day. And among them was a bill to ban conversion therapy. So can you explain why you come down either in favor or opposed?
Oh, yeah. Well, conversion therapy is the interesting thing about conversion therapy is a champion of that has been one of my colleagues, a guy named, besides Brian Sims, I think has repeatedly introduced that bill, but a guy named Jerry Mullery. Jerry is one of the more conservative Democrats in this caucus. He's also one of my dearest friends, and I just think the world of him, and I think he's a brave guy. And he's pushed this issue because of just how bad it can be for members of the LGBTQ population, because of the fact that it can lead to tremendous psychological damage and suicide, and because there's no science behind it. So that legislation, if I'm not mistaken, is a proposed ban on forcing minors into conversion therapy.
Right. And that applies, as I understand the bill, to conversion therapy conducted by people who are licensed by the state of Pennsylvania.
Yep, that sounds right.
All right. In other states, and the one that comes to mind is Michigan, Governor Gretchen Whitmer has issued an executive order that says that state funds cannot be used for conversion therapy on anyone, period, full stop. Can Governor Wolf do the same here in Pennsylvania?
Knowing him, I imagine if he could, or if it hadn't been done already, he would have. I don't see why not off the top of my head, but I don't really know.
Okay. Also, we are in favor of removing the gay and trans panic defense as a defense that's used in criminal cases. As soon as I found out that was a she, in their words, I beat the crap out of whoever it was and then fled, or I shot the person, or what have you.
Yep.
Pennsylvania has had a number of trans people get murdered at the hands of anti-trans people. What do you tell the trans community that would give them some solace?
That I think I was the first, at least on a personal level. I mean, I was the first representative, I think, to try to eliminate this a few years ago. Right now, I gave that bill over to one of my colleagues, Ben Sanchez, and on the second one, we're trying, and it's despicable that we can't get rid of this defense. Simple as that. But I will tell them that there's a wide array of people who are actually trying to make a positive difference on this one.
That gives me some comfort, and it goes side by side with hate crimes legislation, which in Pennsylvania is called ethnic intimidation. And my understanding is back in 2003, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court struck down an existing law that included LGBTQ people, but it did so because the way that got passed was it was attached to some other bill that had
violated the single subject rule. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So now we want to get that back. And one of the causes that we support is, for some weird reason, disability was kicked off that list. Hate crimes against people who are disabled got kicked off.
Yep.
That makes no sense.
Look, I've learned a few things in my life right now. One of the many is that there's a lot of things that happen in the Pennsylvania legislature that make no sense. There's no question that we should reenact hate crime protections for people with disabilities and the LGBTQ population. It's mind-boggling that we haven't, and it speaks volumes about our general dysfunction that we can't pass something so easy.
Now, let's set Pennsylvania aside for a moment on a much broader scale. I take great comfort in another Supreme Court decision that was handed down today, and that involves the Affordable Care Act. The Supreme Court has said, nah, we're not touching this because of lack of standing. They didn't even rule on the merits.
Yes.
They just said, nope, you weren't injured in any way that would be repayable. Therefore, there's no case here.
Yep.
Is that a sigh of relief to your folks in Harrisburg? Your colleagues?
Well, yeah, I mean, the outcome unquestionably, I don't think they'd admit it publicly, but Republicans are secretly grateful for Affordable Care Act and for the Medicaid expansion that it provides, because we help insure tens of or hundreds of thousands of their constituents as well. And it would create a massive catastrophe that Democrats would be happy to rectify, but they would have problems doing so. The but is what happens if another lawsuit comes along where they don't have the standing issues. I mean, that's what keeps me up at night when it comes to Obamacare. I don't think Obamacare is out of the woods yet, because it was a standing-based decision only. So we're not there yet, but at least for the next little while, Obamacare is safe again.
Well, I don't understand. A lot of the people that are complaining about the Affordable Care Act are on Medicare.
Yes, and don't socialize it.
Right, and they get their Medicare information through the U.S. Postal Service.
Don't socialize that either.
And they take that information to their friends at the public library.
Right. They use public funded roads. It's a mess. David, I have like 2 minutes. Is that okay?
Yes, and actually, we're just about out of time.
Perfect.
So Representative Mike Schlossberg of Allentown. Mike, thank you for being on the show today.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
This has been a lot of fun. It's great catching up with you. Do tell your colleagues to join our show someday. I'd be happy to have them as guests.
Reach out to me. If you're looking to get in touch with anybody, I'm happy to pass them along.
That would be great. And if you're watching out there in YouTube land, check out our YouTube channel. If you're not a subscriber yet, become one. Just hit the subscribe button. If you like today's episode of Pep Talks Uncut, give us a thumbs up and let us know how you feel. Mike, again, thank you for being here. And that's all for today.
My pleasure. Thanks so much, Dave. This was fun for me too.
Very good. Bye-bye.